Okay, my little English 10 scholars, this is my first attempt at some sort of recorded lecture, so we're going to just kind of test it out and see where it goes. I am talking to you today about Chapter 1 of Catcher in the Rye, and I'm really just looking at the first paragraph of Chapter 1. If we were in school, this is the close reading activity that we would have done on one of the first days as part of our front loading. But as it is, right now, I'll just kind of walk through the passage and point out things that I think are important, things that you may have missed on your first reading, and that's okay. And I think that by doing this, you will get a better understanding of who Holden is and really what his situation is about, so that as you are reading the subsequent chapters, things make a little more sense. Again, this is my first time using this platform, so kind of bear with me here if I'm going too slowly or if my highlighter is not working. I'm not 100% confident with what I'm doing here, but I am going to work through it. Okay, so you have all, hopefully by now, read Chapter 1 of Catcher in the Rye and the first paragraph. So I just kind of want to walk through different things that we learn about Holden in this particular paragraph here in the very beginning. So one of the first things that I noticed when I read this is in the very first lines here, when he talks about, if you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all that before they had me, all that David Copperfield kind of crap. He really begins this particular part of the book in a very conversational style. He makes us feel like we are part of this kind of intimate conversation. The fact when he says, if you really want to hear about it, maybe suggests that he himself is very reluctant to talk about it, but we are kind of asking him to talk about it. So maybe even we are part of some sort of intimate conversation or a secret that he is about to tell us. It also sounds a little bit therapeutic, if you want to be honest, right? You want to know where I was born, my lousy childhood, my parents, all of these things are in the past. And it's going to set up this idea that Holden is actually telling this whole story as a kind of flashback. Okay, he's going to be talking about the past through almost all of the book. These events have already happened. This down here, this David Copperfield, this is a reference to a book by Charles Dickens. David Copperfield is an orphan, and the story is kind of like his journey to find like who he is, his parentage, and that kind of thing. So that's what that allusion is all about. As I continue reading down, I'm going to scroll here. He says, but I don't feel like going into it, and if you want to know the truth. This idea of truth is going to be kind of controversial throughout the book, because we are going to find out as we read that Holden, we don't know how reliable he is. And I'm going to talk about that once we get to the bottom of the passage. You're going to find out why I question his reliability as a narrator. So the idea of truth is going to be one that kind of goes back and forth in the whole book. So next, he says, in the first place, that stuff bores me. And in the second place, my parents would have had about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told anything pretty personal about them. They're quite touchy about anything like that, especially my father. They're nice and all, I'm not saying that, but they're also touchy as hell. Besides, I'm not going to tell you my whole goddamn autobiography or anything. So, 2 things here. What do you suppose he means by the fact that his parents are touchy as hell? Okay, so think about what that might mean. And also, we have kind of a shift in tone here. So in the beginning, Holden up here says, if you really want to hear about it, then I'll tell you, right? Maybe a little bit reluctant. But down here, with the addition of the profanity, I'm not going to tell you my whole goddamn autobiography or anything. It seems like he's a little resistant to tell us his story. And again, all of this is very kind of new and mysterious to us at first, and we're not really sure why he is resistant to tell us, but we will find that out later. continuing, he says, I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas, just before I got pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy. This passage right here is a bit cryptic, but it's also key. First of all, he references madman stuff. So this is the 1950s. I don't know that madman has really changed much in definition, but what do you suppose he means by madman? Hint, mad does not mean angry, it means something else. We also know that what he's about to talk about is stuff that happened around last Christmas. Okay? And in fact, the story that Holden tells us only happens in a period of a couple days. Like the whole book is just a period of a couple days. And then he goes on to say, last Christmas, he got pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy. At this point, we don't know where out here is, and we also don't really know what take it easy means, although we will figure that out shortly. He then goes on to talk about his brother. He introduces a new character to us, the audience, his brother DB. He says he's in Hollywood. That isn't too far from this crummy place. Okay, again, an idea of where Holden might be telling this story from. Where is he when he's telling us this story? And he comes over and visits me practically every weekend. If you think about a place that has visitors only on weekend, where can we assume that Holden is? And that is a question I'm just going to pose to you, and I'm not going to answer right away, but you probably are beginning to put all the pieces together. Holden goes on to say he's going to drive me home when I get home next month, maybe. And then he goes on to talk about DB a little bit. And you're going to find that DB has a pretty important role in Holden's life. Even though we never really physically meet DB, Holden talks about him quite a bit. Okay, he's got a Jaguar, one of those little English jobs that can do around 200 miles an hour. Cost him damn near $4,000. Wouldn't it be great if we could get a Jaguar for $4,000 these days? He's got a lot of dough now. He didn't used to. He used to be just a regular writer when he was home. He wrote this terrific book of short stories, The Secret Goldfish, in case you've ever heard of it. The best one in it was The Secret Goldfish. It was about this little kid that wouldn't let anybody look, I'm going to scroll, at his goldfish because he bought it with his own money. This right here also right now might seem innocuous, right? Harmless, just Holden talking about his older brother. But it really says something about what Holden values, what's important to him, and what he doesn't like. Okay, what he finds, a word that he's going to use over and over again, phony. It killed me. Now he's out in Hollywood being a prostitute. Okay. Note to students here, I know you all know what a prostitute is, but when he talks about his brother being in Hollywood, he's not an actual, like, prostitute, right? Selling himself, selling his body on a corner, whatever. He's talking about the way his brother sold out. He used to write novels, which Holden thinks is honorable, but now he writes screenplays, which Holden obviously thinks is dishonorable. Like he is sold out to Hollywood because Holden says, if it's one thing I hate, it's the movies. Which is going to be ironic because movies are going to kind of have an interesting role as the story progresses. All right, so in this big opening paragraph right here, we have learned a lot about Holden already. We learn that we are privy to something kind of private that's happening here. We know that Holden's parents are touchy, whatever that means. We know that Holden might be a little resistant in telling his story, but it seems he's going to tell it anyway. Obviously, we wouldn't have a book if he didn't. There was some madman stuff that happened around last Christmas where he became pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy. So this might give you an idea of where Holden physically is when he's telling this story. He refers to it as a crummy place, but it's out in California where his brother is. Note to you, most of the story takes place in New York, which is where Holden lives, where he's from. And then we get a sense at the end here of Holden's relationship with his brother and what he values and what he doesn't value. All right, so that is just the first paragraph of the book. And I obviously won't be doing all of these, or I won't be doing a little lecture for every single one of the paragraphs or the chapters, but it's important that we go into the book with the right tone. Keep up with your reading. Let me know if you have any questions about what I just went through here. I'm going to try to do a Zoom discussion on Monday, so check your Google Classrooms for information about that and for your invites. We'll see how that works because there's so many of you. But take care of yourself. Make sure you're drinking water. Make sure you're getting off your couch or out of your bed and exercising, going for a walk, but staying 6 feet away from people. And let me know if you have any questions about the reading so far. I miss talking to you guys in person. Hopefully this won't last very long and we'll be back in the classroom soon. Have a good weekend, you guys. Bye.